For today's discussion, we discuss an incident in which a Las Vegas vape store owner has defended himself by using a knife to stab a would-be robber. A Las Vegas vape store owner has repeatedly stabbed a crook who frightened him by jumping over his counter during a botched robbery, according to a video and the worker's account of the incident. Video footage shows a brazen broad daylight heist on Wednesday, in which Johnny, owner of Smoke Storm Smoke Shop, stabbed the unidentified assistant at least 7 times before the robber yelled, "I'm dead," and he fell to the ground. Yeah. The Las Vegas police have told the Post that the cops responded Wednesday afternoon to a robbery incident at the shop but would not release further details. He says, "I was scared for my life. When they came in, one of them had a bag in front of him, like he had a firearm or something. I didn't have much time to think. I grabbed my knife right next to the register." Well, he's not claiming he saw a knife. He's claiming he saw a bag. Johnny, who was 22, said it was around 3:25 p.m. on Wednesday when 2 men who wore black ski masks entered his shop while another stood by the door. Surveillance footage shows one of the suspects jump over the counter and try to grab some products off the shelf. Fearing for his life, Johnny said he grabbed his knife with a 3-inch blade and stabbed the assailant several times. "Stop, please. I'm dead. I'm dead," the would-be robber said as he collapsed to the ground. And here we see an image from a still of the attempted robbery that was in progress. So here's basically what I understand the facts to be, based on the way Johnny seems to be telling it. He says that this robber and someone else came into the store and stole his tip jar. Apparently, they exited. Apparently, they then re-entered, at least this guy. It's not clear if the other guy did. And this guy jumps over the counter and attempts to steal things from behind the counter, in response to which Johnny here responds with knife, stabbing the guy multiple different times. All right. So what do we have in play, right? Well, the guy's not dead yet, so we don't know for sure what's going on. But if the guy dies at any time in response to his wounds, you can charge, your initial thought is murder, right? So he's not dead yet, but if he dies, response to the knife wounds, and that can be any time in the future. It can be a month from now, it can be a year from now, it can be 10 years from now, right? If he dies responsive to the knife wounds, and you can prove that, that's murder, right? The common law was a year and a day, but the common law has been abolished, and now it's just basically any time. So, right, so there's a perpetual threat here of a murder charge. He's not dead yet, but he might. So, and also, like, it doesn't even matter, like, if there's surgery and he's walking around for 5 years, right? If 5 years from now he dies and you can prove the reason he died was due to the knife attack, murder, right? So you don't know what's going on because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. But let's deal with the reality before us, right? We've got a guy who doesn't have a knife, doesn't have a gun, doesn't have brass knuckles, doesn't have a bat, doesn't appear to have any kind of implement at all, jump over the counter in order to steal stuff. Okay? You can use lethal force in response to an imminent threat of death or grievous bodily harm. That has to be both subjectively and objectively reasonable. Okay? So, subjectively, did Johnny believe it? Well, Johnny is at least saying he did, but let's take that for the moment as true. Right? We could attack whether or not Johnny really believed it or not. So one of the things we could do as a hypothetical jury in the future, like, we could disbelieve Johnny, that Johnny didn't really believe it. But let's assume we get that far and say, okay, Johnny did believe it. All right, we still need the objectiveness. We need to have a normal, ordinary, common person, ordinary, normal, common prudence, a reasonable person of ordinary, normal fitness, right? The ordinary man, the man on the bus, to say that there was objectively a threat to life. Right? An imminent threat or ongoing threat of death or grievous bodily harm. Here, there doesn't appear to be any. Here, there appears to be simply a guy jumping over and trying to take stuff. He wasn't even being physically attacked, I don't think, at the time of the attack, which raises a whole bunch of problems for his self-defense claim. All right? So normally, your first thought, by the way, is adequate provocation. Adequate provocation is an idea of imperfect self-defense. So if you use lethal force in response to non-lethal force, right? If I punch you and then you stab me, right? Your argument is adequate provocation. My punch is provocation. Now, that's an imperfect self-defense claim. So that's not going to get you off the hook. Typically, that gets you down the next lowest count. So typically, although you'd have to go to Nevada specific law, typically that lowers the charge from murder to manslaughter. So it's like, if I hit you and you stab and kill me, that's going to get you to manslaughter, not off the hook completely. All right. But it doesn't even seem that there was a physical attack. So it's not even clear we've got adequate provocation at all, because all we were trying to do was steal stuff. We didn't appeal that we were trying to confront the guy. And so we might not even have adequate provocation, in which case we're back up to murder, right? So, but he's not dead yet. Can we get to attempted murder? Probably not, because in attempted murder, you have to intend to kill. This is one of the differences, by the way, between attempt, and the actual crime, right? So to have attempted murder, you have to have the intent to kill. We're not sure that that's true. But if he dies, right, you don't necessarily need that. So there's a different standard for murder versus attempt. So attempted murder, probably not. Right now, what we can charge him with, aggravated, we can charge him with, basically top count aggravated assault using a weapon, right? So that's the best thing we've got right now. And we've got looming charges in the distance of murder or manslaughter, depending on whether this guy dies at any point in response to this. So the lesson here, by the way, is, as always, don't use lethal self-defense unless you have to, because this guy is potentially in for a bad time. I remember him saying, "Please don't let me die," Johnny said. He said he was sorry. By that point, he took his mask off. "I was trying to get on the phone when the police were trying to talk to me. I just ran and wanted to make sure the police and ambulance would get there on time." Johnny said the police told him the robber was 17. His condition is not clear. And again, even if he does recover initially, that doesn't necessarily preclude murder charges way down the line. The brazen attempt at the Johnny's shop happened a day after another business owner in California made national headlines after he shot a robber who entered a liquor store armed with an AR-15. See, that is lethal force in exchange for lethal force. No problem. This guy, not so much. This guy, here we see Johnny with his knife in hand. We see the robber with his hands apparently completely empty. Much different factual picture. Johnny, who turns 23 on Saturday, said he's thankful he survived the ordeal. He said the incident left him shook and he plans to look into arming himself with other weapons for protection. Small business owners like us, this is our livelihood. Not only threatening our lives, but our livelihood, so we have to stay vigilant. Johnny, I hate to tell you, but criminal charges are probably coming your way, but we'll see. Thus, that brings us to the end of discussion for the moment of the story of Johnny, 23, who stabbed this 17-year-old suspect, who was unarmed at the time and didn't appear to be attacking Johnny, and certainly didn't appear to be attacking him with any kind of lethal force. So Johnny here is potentially in a whole lot of legal trouble. Unlike the shop owner who used his handgun to shoot at a guy with an AR, this guy doesn't appear to be having any weapon and doesn't appear to be posing an imminent or ongoing threat. Any threat would be speculative, and you can't do that. So Johnny is currently looking at basically top line aggravated criminal assault and battery with a weapon. And potentially, depending on how things develop in the future, if this guy dies at any time relating to the attack, Johnny might be facing murder. So that might be tomorrow, it might be a year from now, it might be 20 years from now. Things are not looking great. So we will see how this story develops. At least for a moment, that brings us to the end of discussion of this story.